in New England pro wrestling history on Wednesday, October 29th, 2025. I joined Coach C, Chris Sanders, to discuss my illustrious career in pro wrestling. The highs, the lows, and everything in between. I didn't really learn how to assert myself until I started at Chaotic. Apollo was a guy, I mean, if I was trained at all, it was by him. Older, a little heavier, and it kind of fit. After the podcast was done, I'm thinking like, I need a creative outlet. I need something to do. That was something that I could contribute that might be worthwhile to people. It's everything you never needed to know about a longtime pro wrestling referee in New England on a historic episode of Best for Business.
Ladies and gentlemen, hosted by Coach C, Chris Sanders, this is Best for Business.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Another episode of Best for Business. I'm pumped for this one. Mike Crockett, man, thank you so much for joining me for this one.
Happy to be here, man. I've been watching your stuff. You're killing it, so happy to be a part of it.
I remember, I think it was after the Milonas episode, you shared it or something, and then I messaged you, like, I'm kind of like nervous to see if, like, oh, would you like to do one down the line? So I'm glad after all this time, we made it happen.
Yeah, I had to follow Milonas again.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm curious for you in pro wrestling, we talk about it. What was it about pro wrestling that made you want to get involved?
I don't know. I discovered it as a teenager. WrestleMania 4 was the first thing I really latched onto with the tournament. And I started going to the Boston Garden. My dad would take me to the Garden starting in 88 in November. My birthday in 88, he got me tickets. So we started going there. And then it wasn't until 91 I discovered indie wrestling. And that kind of just really like blew my mind. And because it's so like, there's no barriers, like literally and like figuratively, you're right there on top of the wrestlers, and you can kind of interact with them a lot more easier than you can, at the Boston Garden. So that kind of just hooked me really bad. And me and my buddies just started going to all the Killer Kowalski shows, IWF, all of the shows that, were on their calendar, we were there. Wow. So it was full bore once we discovered indie wrestling.
So when you discover indie wrestling, how far after did you make the steps to get involved in some capacity?
It only took like 7 years.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. I was always like a shy kid, timid kid. And my buddies, John Rodeo and Steve King, were two of the guys that I would go to the shows with. And they got involved almost immediately and signed up to Walter's school and Killer Kowalski school, and started John as a manager and Steve as a wrestler. And I would just go to the shows with them, and my dad had an old camcorder, that held a VHS tape. You put the VHS tape in.
I think I've heard of those before.
Yeah, a little before your time.
Yeah.
But so I would go and record their matches and stuff like that, and we'd do like weird stuff. Like we didn't have social lives really, so we get together on like Saturday night and set up my camcorder, and we'd like do interviews. Like I'd be the interviewer and interview them and stuff like that. We were just so into wrestling. We just wanted to do anything to like get better. And it was them that were the guys involved. And I would every once in a while, like I go to the school with them and I'd hop in there and referee matches a couple times. I always knew I didn't want to be a wrestler, a manager, because like I said, I was kind of shy, and I figured being a referee is like the closest you can be without being the center of attention. So like I'm right in there, I'm right in the middle of the action, but no one's really paying attention to me. So it was like a perfect fit for me. So yeah, I knew I wanted to be a referee, and that's kind of in 1998. I was going to NWA New England shows, Tony Rumble, Boston Bad Boy Tony Rumble, his promotion. because John and Steve had started getting booked in those shows. And so, I'm going with them.
Yeah.
And they had a need for a referee, and I had gone to like whatever it was, whatever sporting goods store,
Yeah.
and had a referee shirt in my bag and had pants just in case. I brought a bag, and I think it was Scott Dickinson, who was a WCW referee at the
Yeah.
time, was taking care of the referees. He was the head referee at NWA New England, and he. I didn't even talk directly with him because, like I said, I'm
Yeah.
kind of like a wallflower at these shows. So he would talk to John and Steve and say, "Hey, is your boy here?" And they said, "Yeah." So, tonight's the night. So I don't remember the exact date. I think it was Southbridge, Massachusetts.
Okay.
I refereed for the first time.
What was the first match you refed?
It was Rocky Shore, who was a guy who I think it was his ring.
Okay.
He was in the opener against Dave Vicious,
Okay.
who a guy who passed away a bunch of years ago at this point, but he was a huge guy. My first match, he did like he belly to bellied Rocky Shore like off the top rope, and I nearly
Wow.
had a heart attack
Yeah.
the first match in there. But yeah, that was my first match.
Wow. So I'm curious for you, when did your friends like stop wrestling or
Uh,
referee or managing too?
John stopped managing, and I think it was around the time that Tony Rumble passed away in
Okay.
'99. I don't think he went much further than that. And Steve moved to Arizona and started wrestling there.
Hmm.
And then he came back at some point, and he was Sheldon Goldberg's color commentator on
Nice.
the early days of NECW TV. So
Yeah.
they hung around for a bit, but I kind of went a little. I kind of surpassed that. They started a lot earlier than I did, and
Yeah.
I took it a lot further after they were done.
I'm curious for you, what were like performing for NWA New England like? I know a lot of people talk about NWA could be either good or bad because at the time there was like 47 different NWAs and every state pretty much had one. So for you personally, what was it? Was there anything that stood out about NWA New England, you think?
Um, I mean, it was the first real locker room I had been in. It kind of felt like there are a bunch of different factions in the locker room, a
Yeah,
bunch of
okay.
different groups of people hanging out together, and I was just hanging with the guys that I knew, and it was kind of felt like the Wild West because when I started refereeing there, um, I didn't. I mean, I knew. I watched TV and knew the basics about refereeing, but I was not officially trained.
Mhm.
So I was kind of thrown in there, even though I kind of knew what was what for the most part. But a lot of the guys, especially the guys that were in this group called the Brotherhood, which was Tony Rubble was the manager.
Yeah.
He ran the group. He ran the promotion, and he was also on TV as
Knuckles Nelson, I just recorded
yeah.
with him.
Yeah. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Great. He was the manager of the group. So those guys kind of really did whatever they wanted with no repercussions.
Yeah.
So I remember one point I was trying to reprimand one of them, and they simply just took me, grabbed me by the shirt, and bent me over the top rope, like almost
Wow.
backwards. My head almost went in my ass. That's how
Wow.
far bent me
Yeah.
over. And I came back up and I was like, okay, I guess I'm not the authority in this match. So
Wow.
I didn't really learn how to assert myself until I started at Chaotic because NWA New England was kind of, it was rough place to be for a referee, I think.
Yeah. How does Chaotic come to be?
Well, once Rumble died in November '99, I hung on with NWA New England for a little while. Knuckles ended up taking the promotion over.
Mhm.
Him and Jeff Katz, I believe, were the two guys that were running it. And a couple things happened that I kind of soured me. There was one incident I've talked about in particular where someone was nearly paralyzed or was paralyzed temporarily in the ring, and someone, this was like right before intermission, and then in intermission, a lot of the times, especially in those days, at intermission, you would do Polaroids in the ring with
Okay.
with the wrestlers. So this guy took like a tombstone pile driver,
Okay.
and I go up to to help him out and get him out of the ring. He's like, I can't feel my hands, I can't feel my legs. Like, oh my god, man.
Yeah.
So, but it's intermission. So the wrestlers want to come out and get their Polaroids. So one of the wrestlers just comes in the ring. I'm like, this guy is he's paralyzed. I don't know what to do. He grabs him, slumps him over his shoulder, brings him into the locker room, and kind of dumps him on the ground. It's like
Yeah.
that was. I mean, I didn't know a ton about um, dealing with neck injuries and stuff
Yeah.
like that in those days, but that I knew that was the wrong way to go
Yeah.
about it. So
Yeah.
that kind of really soured me, and I walked away from wrestling for a good couple of years, and I ended up going to an NECW show in 2000, or I think this was probably 2000.
Mhm.
It was the show that John Cena um, came back home. He was training out in California. He
Yeah.
came back home and did a show for NECW. And I was really interested to see him because I heard all these things about about
Yeah.
him and the prototype and all that stuff. So he came back and did a show, and I wanted to go. And Steve King, I don't know if he was, I think he was wrestling on the show. He was still in the Boston area at the time, so
Mhm.
he was there. So I came with him and
Right.
watched the show. And Rich Palladino also happened to be at the show, and I had known him because he was the ring announcer for Tony Rumble.
Yep.
That's Rumble was his mentor and got him started also in pro wrestling. So he approached me and said, "Hey, what's going on? How you been doing? Good." And he's saying, I'm basically the talent coordinator for Chaotic Wrestling, a new promotion. I said, "Oh, cool." I had seen Chaotic on. They had a special that was on Nessun, um, called like Ring Masters, I think it was called,
Okay.
and it like the whole show ended up being focused around Chaotic, which kind of really annoyed a lot of promoters because it was a
Okay.
brand
Yeah.
new promotion and they got a lot of screen time for this this pretty big special.
Mhm.
So I heard about Chaotic. I knew they were also on TV. I think on WNDS, or no, I think it was the Spanish channel WUNI.
Yeah. Sounds about right. Yeah.
The same channel that ran ECW a few years
Okay. Yeah.
prior. Yeah. So I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. And he asked me if I would be interested in coming by and seeing
Nice.
what's going on. And it kind of became controversial because Sheldon wasn't too happy. He's saying that he was upset that Rich was going around poaching people from his I mean, I was just there as a fan. I
Yeah.
wasn't on the show, but
Was Rich on the show?
no, Rich was
Okay.
just there as a fan as well. So he it became a point of contention between I think Rich and Sheldon,
Okay.
that Rich was going around talking to people about coming to Chaotic at his show. But
Yeah.
that's what happened, and
Yeah.
that's how I ended up my first Chaotic show.
What were, in your opinion, like the early Chaotic Wrestling days? Because I know a few people talked about it. They weren't having many outsiders even come in, so it's basically just chaotic homegrown talent. So for you personally, I know you said you went to Walter School technically. So what was the locker room and things like for you?
It wasn't necessarily. I think I'm not even sure the CTC was around yet, the
Okay.
Chaotic Training Center.
Oh, okay.
At when I first started, came in. I wasn't there at the beginning, but I came in right before, a couple months before the first Cold Fury, which
Okay.
was Chaotic's big show.
Yeah.
It wasn't really like a super huge show then, but it became
Uh-huh.
their big show. So I hadn't seen much. I lost my train of thought completely.
What were like the Chaotic Wrestling locker rooms
Thank
like?
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it was a lot of guys that were Walter students. There were Kowalski students, like Wagner, John Walters, Vince Vicalo, and guys that were kind of journeyman indie guys like Gino Martino. A couple others like that were there as well. So I mean, there was no such thing as really a chaotic homegrown talent at
Okay.
that point
Yeah,
until
okay.
the CTC started.
Nice. Is there a Chaotic Wrestling match that stands out to you that you got to be a part of?
Ooh, out of the whole history of chaotic,
Or if there's a couple, yeah.
Man, I remember there was a story that we did that I was kind of a part of
Mhm.
um, with Brian Fury and Makazi.
Nice.
They were a tag team, and actually, Handsome Johnny was booking at the time, and he kind of redid this old angle that they did on in the WWF with Lex Luger and Tatanka,
Okay.
where they Lex Luger kept getting heat. Basically, Tatanka was saying that you're no good. You're basically making Luger out to be the heel, but in the
Mhm.
end, it turns out Tatanka was the one who turns. They did the same thing with Fury and Makazi, where they're pointing out the Makazi is doing all these dastardly things behind the scenes, and what's going on with Makazi. It turns out Fury turns heel. So that whole story kind of came to a head. I had a Cold Fury, and they did a lot of stuff. In by that time, Hands of Johnny wasn't booking anymore, and I was helping out. And there were a lot of Fury got fired at one point, partially for attacking me.
Mhm.
Um, so then Makazi had to demand to bring Fury back for the match, and it was really like a well done story. And that match at Cold Fury at the Lowell PAV um, had such heat, and it was incredible. There are some times at that venue, the Polish American Veterans Club, which is I think it's still standing, but it's no longer um, the PAV.
Uh-huh.
It's like a religious place of worship, I think.
Okay.
But there's sometimes some main event matches that I was a part of where the fans are right on top of you and you just feel it, and it
Yeah.
was just an amazing place to referee. But that's the one that sticks in my mind.
Yeah. You mentioned Handsome Johnny. I'm curious. Do you remember your first interaction with him?
Um, my first interaction, not really. I remember seeing a guy with he had blonde hair, bleach blonde hair. He had like big sideburns, and he always had like a white baseball cap backwards. And I'd
Wow.
seen him on a number of different shows, just kind of hanging out looking for work. I know he was, I think he was trained by Jason Rumble
Hmm.
when he was running a school in Rhode Island. But I remember his first appearance in Chaotic, or one of his first appearances in Chaotic. He was Handsome Johnny, and he had these mirrors. He would bring a mirror
Yeah.
to the ring, and he had this long, the long standing mirror,
Mhm.
and it was like super cheap. It was like $6.99 at Walmart or whatever.
Yeah.
And he brought it in the ring. One of the first times I was in there with him. One of the first times they refereed for him. He pushes it in the ring, slides in, picks the mirror up, and the complete thing just shatters.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be we turned it into an angle. Like I immediately went up to him and was like, "Oh my God!" And I was like doing this like 7 years bad luck, man. You got 7 years bad luck, and
Wow.
that started his losing streak. And he would come out with like a rabbit's foot around his neck, all trying to like a lucky like
Yeah.
horseshoe. He'd come up with one time he came out with Lucky Charms, just
Wow.
trying to like turn his luck around because he got
Yeah.
7 years of bad luck. That's my first real memory of Handsome Johnny.
Nice. When you look at your career, your resume goes, but I'm curious for you. Do you have any moments that stand out doing extra work for WWE?
Yeah, we got a lot of opportunities through Jamie, the
Yeah.
owner of Chaotic, because he was pretty tight with the office at the
Mhm.
time. Like anytime they were in town, they'd call him for guys. And I remember there was one time in particular where they were looking specifically for referees
Wow.
because it was just after they let go of Earl Hebner. And Jamie got the call saying, "Do you have any referees?" And it was me and Fat Pants Todd Sinclair. So they sent us both. And one of my big regrets is that I didn't really, I didn't step up. You know what I mean? I was
Okay.
there. They asked, are there referees here? And me and Todd raised our hands. Um, and they did, they do workouts in the afternoon. All the guys get up, and they basically, they're all in the corners, and they tag each other in, and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
roll around to the ring in the afternoon. Uh, so they're looking for a referee. Todd Sinclair hops up and gets right in. There's this other guy that was on the road with them, who's just doing the loop. I think his name is Kevin Keenan.
Oh
And
yeah, I talked to him the other day. Yeah,
oh, really? Yeah,
yeah,
he
he's
he
still
he
going.
yeah, I've seen him on like NWA and stuff
Yeah,
like that. He was just on the road with them, like doing the Northeast Loop or whatnot, and he was late getting down to the ring, so I was ready to like make my big move and hop into the ring and get in the referee, and he slid right down because he had already known that he'd been in with
yeah.
these guys for a few days, so they knew him, so he slid right in and basically refereed the rest of the matches. So I had this thing. It, like I said, the shyness thing where I kind of like hang in the background, and
Mhm.
I just kind of regret that I didn't kind of, make myself noticed and hop up. But that's what are you gonna do?
The
I'd
way you
also done,
learn.
yeah, yeah. I also done like I was a druid once,
Nice.
for a match with I think it was Undertaker and the Big Show.
Mhm.
If you want to look it up, it's the worst druids of all time because the casket comes down and it's all crooked. Like it's coming down the aisle and it's coming down like this.
Who else was a
Like
druid with you?
Milonas, Handsome Johnny, a
Love
bunch
it.
of chaotic guys. Yeah, Milonas, look for the big guy in the cloak. And
Nice.
that's Milonas. I think it was Milonas's first time. He was like really nervous, and I had been there a
Wow.
few times at that point, so I was kind of a little more relaxed.
Also, he was riding your coattails for this one.
Yeah, yeah, for the first time, and yeah,
Wow.
never again. But yeah, so it was. I got to do a lot of things. I was gambling with Christian in one
Wow.
vignette. Yeah, I got a lot of opportunities. It was
Nice.
eye-opening, but it's I don't know how different it is now, but
Mhm.
a lot of eggshells just kind of stand out of people's way and not kind of rocking the apple cart when it came
Yeah.
to. I've heard that it's gotten a lot better, even like back as far as like when William Regal was running things, and
Yeah.
at one point I think Dustin Rhodes was, and it was a lot better. But back then it was. Yeah, you're kind of almost like a second class citizen if you were an extra in WWE at the time.
Yeah. What about Ring of Honor?
Ring of Honor was very brief.
Okay.
Again, Todd Sinclair,
Yeah.
was the senior referee there. He got his opportunity by showing up again and again with John Walters, um,
Wow.
who was getting booked by Ring of Honor at the time. So he kind of like paid it forward by letting me come along, and I
Yeah.
was riding with him to kind of riding his coattails, just like he did with John, hoping something would happen. So I was going to any shows within driving distance, which means like from anything to like Philly, probably at the
Okay.
furthest
Yeah.
is where I would go. So I did a bunch of pre-match shows.
Nice.
I did one main card show in Boston, and had a situation where it was my first big opportunity,
Mhm.
and I remember exactly what was said to me. Um, Matt Sydal was in the match. I just looked this match up recently. I can't even remember what it was. I think it was a tag match. But Matt Sydal told me, he says, okay, I got this one big false. All right. I'm going to do basically a standing moonsault. That's my one big false. So just remember that. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
No problem. So we get out there, and the one big false comes, the standing moonsault, and it's kind of near the corner. So I kind of almost, this is my recollection. I never watched it back because I was so mortified. But I recall like almost jumping over him to kind of get to where I was. So I jump and land on the mat, and the fans think that's one because they hear that I land down on the mat and they think one. So they count out loud one, and then I count one, and they're going two, and then I count two, and they go three. Yeah. And so I fucked up his
Yeah.
one big false. So
Yeah.
I was like this happened a few times in my career where I'm just absolutely mortified. I remember
Yeah.
another time I was doing a show for Rumble and he had actual WWE or WWF, I think, talent on the show. They were
Mhm.
contracted guys. It was
Yeah.
Ivory versus Tori, not Tori Wilson, but the other Tori.
Yeah. Wow.
And I got the finish from Kevin Kelly.
Mhm.
He was like kind of like the liaison for the the 20 Rumble at
Okay.
the between WWE and 20 Rumble. So he was there and he gave me the finish of the match. And the women changed the finish and didn't tell me. So I did one, two, and I completely whiffed. And I was like, I remember it was like winter, it was freezing, and I kind of just walked out the door and just paced around in the snow. It
Wow.
was, yeah, it's happened a couple times,
Yeah.
and it took me like probably 8 to 10 years to feel comfortable where I felt like I
Wow.
was a good referee because I was just, I guess, yeah, major kind of confidence issues.
Wow.
Going back
Yeah.
to Ring of Honor, after that, no one told me like you suck, you're done, we're never booking you again. But I kind of was so like I said, mortified and embarrassed that I had a relationship with Gabe where I'd email him before a show saying I'm going to be showing up. If you need anything, if you need anybody, if you need any bodies or whatnot, and he'd always say back, "Oh, good, can't wait to see you." And I just stopped emailing him.
Wow.
So I mean, what could be if I had the balls to just email him again and
Yeah.
say, yes, sorry about that. I love another shot, but I never did. So
Wow.
that was my Ring of Honor experience.
You've said a name a few times. I'm curious for you. Do you remember your first interaction with Milonas?
Milonas. Um, it's hard to like remember like just meeting someone in a locker room, but
Well, what was it about the chemistry with you and Milonas, I guess? Because obviously you've met a lot of people through pro wrestling, but you and Milonas just had this chemistry and this friendship.
that didn't really come until we worked together on the shoot job.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
because we had, I mean, I remember in particular a trip that we did to Delaware. Because I know you've talked to the
Yeah.
Logans and Chase about going down to
Was this like
Delaware
during the
for,
talent exchange thing?
yeah, for
Okay.
Jim Kettner. I did that for like 6 to 9 months where I was
Nice.
going down every month, probably maybe even longer. I
Yeah.
was going down there. I'd hop in with the guys and head down. One time it was me, Milonas, and Tommaso Ciampa.
Nice.
And I don't know. Milonas, he likes to talk.
Mhm.
He's a
Yeah.
big talker. And I remember at one point I was just like, can we just not talk for a little while? And he was very offended by
Yeah.
that. And so we had this kind of underlying kind of animosity, but still respect and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so I think that kind of comes through on the podcast. And yeah, we definitely became uh good friends
Nice.
when we started working together and he asked me to be part of the podcast.
What was your idea behind joining the podcast and the name, the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing? I love it. What was the creativity behind that?
That was all Milonas actually,
Okay.
because Milonas had buddies of his that were starting a website, and it was like like a combat sports website,
Okay.
and they wanted something like they wanted like a couple of podcasts to kind of draw people in. So his buddy said basically we want you to do the wrestling podcast, Milonas, and they gave him some equipment on the house to get
Wow.
started, and he
That's
said
not
he
bad.
didn't. Yeah, it was nice. He realized he didn't want to talk to himself. He needed somebody to bounce off of, so he talked to me. He came up with the name of the wrestling podcast about nothing,
Nice.
because we were both kind of Seinfeld fans, but I was kind of tentative about doing the podcast because, like I said, he's a talker, but I'm not. I guess maybe I am more now, but I wasn't. Like if you ask people in the locker room,
Mhm.
like if they found out, when they found out I was doing a podcast, they're probably like, "You mean the guy that changes in the corner and with his back to everybody?"
Uh-huh.
Because like I wasn't like the most like happy-go-lucky,
Yeah.
friendly, like "Hey, how are you?" guy in the locker room, but it was kind of almost. I took it as a challenge because I hadn't. Uh, I'm not that kind of guy, and I remember like doing like interviews with people I didn't know was always like I was always tense, and I tried to be like really, really prepared. So I would I would not just kind of sputter out or anything like
Yeah.
that. So it was a challenge, but I'm glad I took it because it really kind of helped me open up a little bit.
No. When did you officially like gain that confidence? Because when you see these videos and reels on Instagram and all that, you can't even tell you have the confidence with that. You do segments like skits at first and make them funny for certain occasions. Like, when did you gain that?
I think it was, well, first of all, through pro wrestling is, I mean, just
Yeah.
being out there and performing in the ring just kind of helps with that.
Mm,
But actually, like talking, that was basically the podcast that kind of
okay.
got me used to doing that, especially like I said, talking to people I didn't know was always been kind of an issue for me. People probably um think maybe like I go to shows today, like I do shows here and there, and I think people maybe think I'm like standoffish, or maybe I'm like stuck up. I don't know why they would think that, but maybe they do because I don't really approach people that
Okay.
much. So it's always kind of been an issue, and I think the podcast kind of opened that up for me, and then doing the videos and stuff like that was kind of just an extension of that.
Do you have a favorite podcast episode? Because once in a while, I'll just scroll through, listen to random episodes. I remember the other day I was listening to, I think you had MJF on, and we were talking about Tony P, and I was sending that over to Tony P. He didn't even know about that. Is there an episode that sticks out to you?
Um, there are a couple.
Nice.
The first time we interviewed Handsome Johnny,
Nice.
Ivar, uh, we did it in like two parts, and I don't think you'll ever find another interview like that because me and Milonas know him so personally, all the
Yeah.
struggles and everything like that. So I don't think you'll ever get a more detailed and like complete interview with him about his struggles and
Yeah.
how he overcame them and to get to where he is now. Um, there was another podcast with this guy Mike Mills who does this podcast called Booking the Territory,
Mhm.
where we did a debate because he's from the South and Malonis is obviously from the North. So
Yeah.
we talked about Southern wrestling versus Northern wrestling, and it was a really,
Wow.
really I was like the moderator, and it was really a kind of a fun debate back and forth. That was one of my favorites as well. A lot of the interviews, kind of, especially with my buddies, like when I
Mm.
would have like Max Bauer, who's a guy who's kind of, I don't know if he's forgotten about, but he was like kind of a big name locally who
Yeah.
got signed to NXT basically at the same time that Mercedes did, and they both went down to Tampa. It was before the
Mhm.
Performance Center. They both went down
Yeah.
at the same time, and he has a lot of experience. He was there on day one at the PC, and he had a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge about all that stuff. So it was, yeah, mostly the ones with my friends were my favorite
Nice.
ones.
Now,
Yeah.
book in the territory. You involved with that at all? You do episodes?
I do. Yeah. I'm not involved like,
Okay.
but I'm like their pinch hitter, their go-to like relief
Nice.
pitcher. If one of their hosts is out, I basically fill in. I'm actually doing
Nice.
another one next week. Yeah,
Nice.
it's a great podcast. The guys are hilarious, and yeah, it's one of the most fun things that I get to do.
Nice. How do you go to Rad Pro Rasslin? Is it behind your idea, the character that you're given? What I forgot how you call it. You're the senior official, but isn't it like the elder? I forgot what they call it.
The senior citizen
Yeah, that
official.
was it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, I'm a little older, a little heavier, and it kind of fits. Yeah. What is my name? Bruce. It's the same name of an old weatherman in Boston.
Okay.
It's Bruce something, I think.
Yeah.
I can't even remember. But
Yeah.
yeah, Rad Pro. I started basically because in the beginning Milonas was involved,
Yeah.
and anything that kind of Milonas is involved with, I like to support him.
Nice.
He ran a show at his high school like a few years before that, and I made sure I was on board, and I was got to be a part of that. So
Nice.
when he started this venture with Scott for Rad Pro, I kind of we did like a bonus podcast. This is after the podcast had ended, and
Mhm.
we did a special bonus one basically just to promote the show, and I don't know, I kind of weaseled my way onto the show during the podcast. So
Wow.
that's how I started. And Milonas he was there for about a year, and he backed away, and I've just continued. So I've
Yeah.
been there ever since.
Do you ever think the wrestling podcast about nothing makes a return?
I've had numerous ideas, and it's just never. Me and Milonas' schedules have
Okay.
kind of never lined up. There was we used to do one every Christmas, right before the end of the year. We did it for a couple of years, and this past year, that was the plan, but I was moving at the time, and we moved it a number of times, and it just didn't happen. So, um, and I had this idea of bringing it back pretty regularly
Hmm.
in a different form. It's just a matter of, um, yeah, syncing up with Milonas and making that happen. So
So this
hopefully,
Christmas, maybe we're gonna make it happen.
that's a thought. That's
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, that's something. And then maybe perhaps into 2026, you never know. But
Nice.
that's I had this idea to take it kind of a different direction,
Okay.
and um, it's kind of remains to be seen if we'll see it. But
Nice.
it's definitely a thought in my head and something
Yeah.
that I want to try to make happen.
Yeah. I'm curious for your career when you look back at who would you say are your biggest mentors?
Mentors. Probably, I mean, Mike Hollow when I started, because like I said, when I started at NWA New England,
Hmm.
I was kind of untrained.
Okay.
I was untrained.
Yeah.
And when I started with Chaotic, I would start showing up at the CTC. And Hollow probably doesn't even know. Like I learned a lot just kind of hanging out and doing class matches and stuff like that and learning a lot. Like I didn't know about a lot of the structure of a match. I didn't really understand. I knew it kind of like just as a thing, but I didn't like know it like by name and what each part is called and how you
Yeah.
go from one part to another. So that kind of really opened my eyes. So Hollow was a guy, I mean, if I was trained at all, it was by him.
Nice.
And probably Todd Sinclair as well. Just I mean, it's kind of funny because he started in refereeing after me,
Hmm.
but just through the fact that he's done so much more,
Yeah.
and he would bring it back to me and he'd give me little tips and things that he'd hear from people here and there that kind of would stick with me. So those are probably the biggest two I could think of.
Nice. If someone was to ask you in general, is there one match or a few that stand out for you, not in chaotic, but just in general for refereeing?
There's one that was kind of surreal.
Okay.
Um, I talked about in NWA New England, they had like this thing where they would have basically WWF contracted guys on their shows.
Yeah.
And this one show, it was at a high school somewhere in Connecticut, packed gym to the rafters, and they had um, Cornette on the show, and the main event was um, the Big Boss Man versus the Road Dogg.
Wow.
And this was at like the height of, this is DX. Come on,
Yeah.
1999. It was DX. And to be standing in the ring while Road Dogg does his whole spiel, ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen, boys and girls, that was like, I was like, where am I? What is going on right now that I'm a part of this? And
Wow.
yeah, that match in particular, and I learned a bunch too because Cornette was on the outside. He was managing Boss Man, which
Okay.
I didn't even realize at the time was like kind of significant because he kind of started out, together in the NWA.
Mhm.
So it was like Cornette was doing things that I was like, I don't really know why that's happening. So when we got to the back, I would ask him like, why did you do this and what did I do right or wrong in this situation? So it was really a big learning experience, and it was like I said, just it was like a trippy thing to be a part of
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah. So in New England right now, I'd say even like these past few years, you're an absolute legend. So I'm curious for you, when does this idea first start for your first video? What is the mindset behind it? Because nowadays content is everything. So for you, what was the mindset behind it?
I had done like I was yeah like after the podcast was done, I'm thinking like I need a creative outlet. I need something to do, um, and I just thought that I've been around even before I was refereeing. I've been around indie wrestling since the early '90s. So I
Yeah.
thought like that was something that I could contribute that might be worthwhile to people, and so I started just like typing out these today in history, this happened and that happened, and it didn't really amount to much. I know that pictures and video is
Yeah.
far superior to just like typing something out. So I figured I should put some video to it, and that's kind of where I started. And I found like I started researching, and it was March of 2023, I think.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, my senior year
And
of high school, I would watch them every day.
yeah, thank you. And I found like the perfect place to start, which was this video about Lobster Man. Um, and it was the 3D match. It's
Mhm.
just like it was this legendary story that I heard a bunch of times because I'd also worked for Maverick Wild's promotion called Front Row Wrestling, which is kind of like the spiritual successor to Jeff Costa's
Okay.
AWA. So he would always tell Lobster Man stories, Jeff Costa stories, and he'd talk about this 3D match where he like Jeff had found a box somewhere in like a yard sale or something, a box of 3D glasses, those
Mhm.
old paper 3D glasses, and he charged like $1 or $2 to the fans to buy these glasses, and all the fans around the ring wearing these glasses, and
Yeah.
you know, uh, Lobster Man would come out and say like, "Whoa!" and go like towards the people I'm calling. It's
Yeah.
like almost like I'm right there.
Yeah.
And so like just it's just like so carny that it's amazing. And
Yeah.
I thought it was a great story, and I really wanted to kind of almost memorialize it so it's there forever. And that kind of like just felt like the perfect place to start, and it
Mhm.
kind of inspired me to kind of keep going, and I wanted to do it like I want to do a full calendar year, and that's kind of what ended up happening. I mean,
Yeah.
it was tough. Like there's some like late nights and just trying to come up with an idea, and sometimes there's a date that doesn't have much going on. I had to kind of make something happen, but I did, and I kind of I'm really proud of that year that I did it. And
Is
yeah,
there like a thought process? Because like you said, like you can have ideas and like say like, oh, like March something like this year something happened, but not the specific date always. So what is like the thought process from doing your research? Obviously cage match is there, but that's not the only tool.
yeah. There's Cage Match. There's this old website, the New England Independent,
Okay.
which was around in the early 2000s. That was still up. I don't think it's up anymore. I mean,
Okay.
you could find it, through certain like the
Were
Wayback
chaotic
Machine.
results on there?
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
Nick Logan hit me up. I sent him a bunch of results. I think so. They're still up.
yeah. Yeah, it was up when I was doing the research, but
Okay.
yeah, it was tough. Like I so many times I would think like, oh, I remember that thing that happened, and I would look and it happened on a weekend, and I didn't do them on the weekends.
Okay.
So I'd be like, ah, damn it. And that's why some of these like I just put out a video. I mean, this comes out
Yeah.
it does not coming out for a while, but I just put a video about Kurt Angle's first match,
Insane.
which which was one of the ones that was the original run that I did happened on a it fell on a Sunday, so I was like, I really wanted to do that one. So when it came up this year, I was like, all right, I'm definitely gonna do that one. I got one coming up. I want to do it for next week too. That's
Nice.
another big one that I missed out on. But yeah, it's just I mean, like I said, sometimes there are some days where nothing was going on, but I wanted to do one for every weekday for that year, so that I made the best of anything I had.
Is there like a moment that you realize like these were picking up steam and that like people love them?
Yeah, it's really like it's really great hearing like feedback and getting comments and like DMs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like it also, even before like hearing the feedback, it was really cool to reach out to all these people I haven't talked to in a long time, and ask them, pick their brain, because I mean, I my memory is not that great, so a
Yeah.
lot of the time I'm relying on someone else to kind of fill in the gaps for a lot of these things. And I mean, obviously, I wasn't at all these events
Yeah.
either, so a lot of times I reconnected with a lot of people, and it was really cool to hear that. And yeah, a lot of feedback too. Like when I'd start going to like the Rad Pro shows, like someone like you know, the trainees at New England Pro Wrestling Academy would like, oh, I love your videos. Thanks.
Nice.
I've learned a lot. It was really cool and flattering to hear.
Nice. Is there a favorite video that you did or like a story that's like so like out of the blue that like you didn't think was real?
There's one, yeah. A lot of the one I'm really proud of the memorial ones, the ones
Yeah.
of people that passed away, especially because some of them it's really hard to find anything online. I really want to make sure that these people that contributed to indie wrestling in New England have something out there, so for people to remember them by, and
Yeah.
hopefully these videos last forever. But there's one in particular for Richard Byrne, who was a Kowalski trainee. He actually uh, owned the karate studio that Kowalski's school was run out of. So they
Okay.
both kind of shared that space.
Yeah.
And I found out that Richard Byrne, this, indie wrestler from New England, had main evented for New Japan Pro Wrestling in Japan.
Wow.
He did one show, a main event against Tatsumi Fujinami. It was like, because he was also, like I said, he owned a karate studio. He was a grandmaster in Tang Sudo, I think it's pronounced, karate.
Yeah.
So he was like, they did a karate versus wrestler match, and he was the karate guy. And just the fact that this guy that I had seen on Kowalski shows in the early 90s, and he was in a New Japan Pro Wrestling main event. It was
Wow.
kind of
Yeah.
crazy to me. And
Nuts.
that was something, and I was so happy when I was able to kind of somehow in the bowels of the internet find the footage. So I was
Yeah.
able to actually add the footage. That was like that took a lot of digging to find that.
Yeah.
And I was so happy and proud that I was able to find that footage to actually put in the video.
Yeah, when you talk about content, obviously, I do 2 podcasts a week, and I don't think I'm posting enough. So obviously, for you, posting for a full year, putting in a lot of the work. What are the goals post the 1 year? Like you said, you post one today, you're gonna post one next week. What is it, one a week, or just whenever you find something?
I think mostly it's like whenever there's something juicy, kind of
Okay.
something like, I'm not gonna just post something about a random fly by night indie.
Yeah.
It's gotta be something that I saw prior. Like I have my calendar on my computer is like filled with like anytime I think of something or I see something out there, I put it in the calendar
Yeah.
under that date. And there's been a couple that I've put on there. Like I said, it's basically going to be the ones that fell on the weekends that I would be doing. But yeah, there's a couple of ones coming up that I really want to do. And yeah, it's got to kind of be something that I can kind of sink my teeth into.
Nice. I don't know if I ever told you this. I might have the video. The day you posted one on Wolverine and Danger Boy, we went to some New England wrestling. I forget what it was. They won some award. And as they're coming up or as they're doing their speech, people are chanting they still exist. So I guess like you're relevant all around, man. So thank you for doing that. We might gotta
That's
do one for October 29th. That's the day that this episode drops. That's history right there.
Oh, you might have to. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's yeah. Like I remember open up that PWI and seeing those names. Like, what? Who are these guys?
Yeah, it's
Like,
on the
cause
jackets and all.
yeah, because I like it's so funny. Like in those days of indie wrestling, it was kind of like these different islands. It felt so far apart. Like
Yeah.
like Kowalski had his own thing in like Massachusetts, and Jeff Costa had New Hampshire, and Southeastern Mass was
Yeah.
Yankee Pro, and like it felt like light years away, and no one like ever crossed paths. So it was like so like think about something in Rhode Island. That's
Yeah.
like the other side of the world. So
Yeah.
like so yeah, everything was just so spread out, and like the internet and everything has just kind of brought everything closer together. So when I found that footage, I was like, all right, these guys, they do
Yeah,
exist.
my daddy had to give his buddy some VHS tapes to convert because people didn't believe him.
Yeah. So yeah, thank your dad's buddy,
We
because
still got more to come, I guess, too. I gotta
really,
tell him.
really nice. I
So
can't
I'm
wait to see
curious
it.
for you, obviously. You talk about doing the content whenever there's something that happens and you're debating bringing a podcast back. Are you up to anything nowadays? Do you have any goals with content or anything like that?
There is something that's been in the pipeline for a little while that
Nice.
is kind of a major undertaking, and it's slow going, but it's
Okay.
something that I don't really want to say anything yet,
Yeah.
but it's something that I think will be welcomed in the pro wrestling space, especially here in New England.
Nice.
I think something I don't know when it's going to come, but
Okay.
I'm actively working on, but very slowly working on
Okay.
that I hope to share with people not too far into the future.
Yeah. I'm curious for you. What was the experience like? Obviously, I believe you're a huge Red Sox fan, but to ref at Fenway Park.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like I'd heard they did the first year or two at Fenway Park, and I was like, that's just a cool thing that something a bucket list thing, something you want to be a
Yeah.
part of. So um, talked to Milonas, he was booked, so I rode his coattails again into Fenway Park
Yeah.
and refed his match a couple others. It had been a few years since I'd refereed. It's crazy. I stopped refereeing regularly in 2015, so it's been 10 years.
Was there a reason behind stopping at first?
Um, I was kind of burnt out
Okay.
because at that time, Chaotic, I was working with Milonas, like I said, at the shoot job, but the shoot job, it was also owned by Jamie, who
Okay.
owned Chaotic. So I was working for Jamie and Chaotic and in the shoot
Were
job.
you working with like Handsome Johnny and the Logans too, or no?
I was there with Johnny. I
Okay.
was there with Ivar, but the Logans were gone by the time I was there.
Okay.
But everyone, Tommaso has
Yeah.
gone through Psycho, anyone who had any ties to Chaotic had done at least a short stint
Wow. Yeah. What
at the
was the
warehouse.
job?
It was a lingerie warehouse.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
So yeah, there was, and me and Malonis kind of were the ones who stuck around the longest.
Okay.
Um, so I just where was I again?
You were getting burnt out, like why you stepped away.
Thank you again. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I'm getting old. Um, so yeah, 2015, I think Jamie was getting a little burnt out as well. So a lot of the responsibilities are falling onto me and Malonis. Um, and I wasn't looking forward to going to shows anymore. And I remember like staring at the ceiling fan at night, just like thinking about I don't want to do this. I have to figure out a way to stop. And next day at the shoot job, I walked into Jamie's office and said I have to quit.
Wow.
And I did. I stopped in 2015. I only came back. I came back to referee Ivar's last match before going to WWE. I refereed Theory's retirement match in Chaotic, and that was really the only thing I did until did the Rad Pro stuff. So,
Yeah.
and this, the Fenway thing in between.
What do
So,
you remember what match Milonas was for Fenway? Because I know those like 19 at one year.
oh, the match that
Or
Milonas
what
had.
number match or around there where he was?
Oh, it wasn't too late. It was
Okay.
kind of early. So yeah, and we also we ended up doing a podcast during the during we interviewed like three or four of the guys on the show.
Nice.
So there's a podcast out there of our Fenway experience.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is there a favorite venue? Obviously Fenway Park, but is there any other venues that stick out you get to ref at?
I talked about the PAV, the
Yeah.
Polish American Veterans Club in Lowell. That was Chaotic's home base, and that was like kind of where Chaotic really flourished.
Yeah.
Um, the Littleton Opera House. I know I've heard other guys on your show talk about the Littleton Opera House as well.
Yeah.
Up in it's way up there in New Hampshire. Just a perfect venue for wrestling. Just they have the balcony there. It could it's looks great, and you can fill it up with not and you don't need thousands of people to fill it up.
Mhm.
There's this one picture, this black and white photo that Sean Gorman occasionally shares of the ring and the fans just kind of hanging over the balcony, and I think it's Alex Arion and Brian Fury, and I'm the referee. It's just and Gorman's on the outside. It's just
Yeah.
an awesome photo, and just a beautiful building.
Wow. Well, Mike Crockett, I want to thank you for joining me. However, I've ended every interview the same now. The day we decide it's all done, which obviously isn't happening anytime soon, but the day we decide it's all done, what do you want your legacy in pro wrestling to be?
Um, yeah, I want to be known as a competent referee, somebody that wrestlers wanted to work with. But beyond that, I think I want to make sure that New England wrestling history kind of has its place. I'm really proud of what I've done with the videos and getting more awareness out there about the guys and girls who have um, kind of paved the way in New England, because we're kind of in the shadow of the WWE here in the Northeast.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like wrestling's history is WWE's history. So like the indies up here kind of almost get lost in the shuffle. So I really want to make sure that uh, that is not forgotten.
Nice. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining this. I appreciate it. I told you the time I messaged you, I was like, I don't know if he's going to say yes. So thank you for doing this, man.
I'm really happy to do it, and I appreciate it. And you're doing great work, and
Thank you.
keep doing it. Keep
Thank
it
you.
up.
Thank you for doing this, and thank you everybody for watching this episode. This was Best for Business.
Thank you for watching this episode of Best for Business. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, because this is Best for Business.